Hello, welcome back to Cracking the Cryptic. Well, today we've got what looks like it could be an interesting puzzle. It's there on the screen, and this is a puzzle called Skyscraper Sudoku. Now, to solve the puzzle, we're going to need to understand the rules of skyscrapers, which some of you might not be familiar with, so I'll go through those in a moment. If you want to try the puzzle, though, do click on the link under the video. That'll take you to our software. You'll see exactly what I'm saying, and you can have a go at it yourself. Now, I am looking forward to this because this is a puzzle that a viewer has suggested to us by somebody called Xevs, Xevs apparently, and they say that this puzzle has an amazing trick in it. So we will we will make of that what we will. But let's just take a look at the rules. So I found this on the internet. It's sort of an explanation of the basic skyscraper puzzle, which is typically a sort of, a 5x5 or a 6x6 grid with these numbers outside the grid. And what these numbers are telling you is how many buildings you could see from the various directions. If you were looking from this direction this way along this row, you could see 5 buildings. Now, what does that mean, 5 buildings? Well, we have to imagine that each of the numbers, numbers 1 to 5 in this example, that would appear in that row represent buildings of height 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So obviously if you could see 5 buildings, then the highest building would have to be the furthest away, because otherwise if the highest building was right at the start of or right in this square here where the cursor is, you wouldn't be able to see any buildings behind the highest building. And perhaps the best explanation is this bottom right diagram here. So you can see here that they've sort of 3D-ified it, and therefore it's fairly clear in this 3x3 grid. A man standing in this position would be able to see, or needs to be able to see, 3 buildings. So the smallest building would have to be first, then the next building, then the highest building. The man here seeing a 2 in this direction, well, that would mean that it has to be in this order. So he can see 2 buildings. You see the building of height 2 and then the building of height 3. Now this has therefore been sort of expanded, and this puzzle is normal Sudoku, except these numbers outside the grid are skyscraper clues. So if we look down here at this 8, for example, that suggests that we need to be able to see 8 buildings in this direction. So obviously that's going to mean that the highest number, the 9, is going to have to be well over to the right hand side. So if I try to put a 9 there, for instance, the maximum number of buildings you could see if I put the 9 here would be 1, 2, 3, 4. That breaks the clue. So we're going to have to use that logic to crack this puzzle. Now, as I was typing it into our software, I can already see there's something highly, highly interesting about this. I mean, look at the way it's been set up with this 1, 2, with the even numbers outside the grid and the odd numbers sort of complementing them down column 1. So clearly this is a puzzle that has a lot of thought that's gone into it. So without further ado, how would we solve it? Right. So, well, one of the first things I'm noticing is that if I try and do normal Sudoku with this grid, I'm not seeing very much at all. I mean, really not very much at all. So I think we're going to have to plow straight into the skyscrapers logic to make progress. So let's think about that. Now, how do we... I'm not brilliant at skyscrapers, by the way. It's certainly not my favourite puzzle type. I find myself going around my, circles in my head. I believe some of the best solvers in the world solve the smaller puzzles by, overt bifurcation, quick guessing and sort of proving by contradiction. Now, you guys who watch the channel regularly will know I don't like that method, so I try and do these things more slowly and methodically. Right, okay, I've got something. If we look down the column here, we obviously need to put an even number into this square. Well, if I try and put a 4, for example, in this square, I've already got a problem with the 8 clue, because I need to be able to see 8 buildings in this direction. Well, if there's a 4 in the first position, the maximum number of buildings I could see would be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, that's 6 buildings. So this is going to have to be a 2 in order to give me enough room to fill the 8 clue. And in fact, I see, right, okay. And the same thing as we work up the grid now, we're going to get the same problem. I can't put a 6 in here because that was going to break my 6 clue. So in fact, these clues on the outside are a cute way of showing that that must be the configuration of the first column of the grid, which is going to allow me to start putting some pencil marks in. And in fact, we get off another digit here because of these 8s, meaning there's an 8 in one of these 2 squares. I can then use the 5 outside the grid here. This can't be an 8. If this is an 8, the maximum number of skyscrapers would be 1, 2, 3, and then the 9, wherever that went, that would give me a maximum of 4. So this can't possibly be an 8. This must be an 8. Okay. Right. So what next? Well, the answer is, I'm not sure yet. I mean, I guess looking at the 8 clue, the 9 is going to have to be in one of the final 2 positions, because if not, I can if I put the 9 here, the maximum number of skyscrapers that you could see from this position would be 7. So the 9 is in one of those 2 squares, and I guess the 8 would be next door. And because there's a 2 here, it's the 1 that's misplaced, isn't it? Ah, now this 4, okay, right, this 4 is cool. This 4 gives us a bit more information, because I suppose one way of thinking about all of these clues, is that we need a strict ascending order of the numbers that we haven't used yet. So what do I mean by that? Well, what we can't have in this row, for example, is a situation where you have, let me go to this, we could never have that sort of arrangement where these numbers are out of step, because the moment we do that, we break the clue. So we need somehow the arrangement here to be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and it's the 1 that's going to interfere with the sequence, but we know that those digits, the digits higher than a 2, must be in strict ascending order. So, oh, hang on, my phone's ringing. Let me turn that off. 1 sec. What a time for Mark to phone. Right, so what we were saying, I was looking at the fact that the numbers have to escalate in order. And this 4, that's right, I looked at that 4. Right, yes, because this 4, obviously the 4 can't be over here, because that's going to completely break the ordering that we need. So the 4 must be in one of these 2 positions. But we know that the 1 is the only digit that's out of position in the stepping up. So in fact, if I put the 4 here, obviously, then what's the maximum we could get to would only be 7. So this must be 4, and this must be 3. So I don't know why I've got a 7 in there. The 5 must be in one of these 2 squares, and the 6 must be in one of those 2 squares. Now, look, we've got 5 and 6 there. So again, we need this. Oh, hang on. Hang on. So we need we can't put 5 or 6 in these two squares, yet I need this to strictly escalate in order, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So the 5 must be in one of those two squares, the 6 must be in one of these two squares. In this, it's the 2 that's getting in the way of the strict ordering in this row, because this 2 obviously cannot go in either of these positions, so it's going to have to take a position over here, and it can only take one position. Therefore this must be a 1 and a 3 into these two squares. That's forced. So this is 3, 1. These are 7, 8, 9 now. And look, again, we must have strict ordering. So if this is 7, oh, oopsie. If this is 7, 8, 9, 7, 8, 9, 7, 8, 9, I can't put an 8 or a 9 here, obviously, because then the 4 will break immediately. So this must be a 7, this must be an 8, this must be the 9. Now, I'm just coming back down here because there's something that's... We've got... Oh, this is absolutely incredible. I think this is incredible. If we look at what we've got along this row and this row, let's just focus on the 5s first. We know the 5s are in one of the first two positions in row 8 and one of the first two positions in row 6. So this is an X-wing on 5s. But the weird thing about that is that it's followed by an X-wing on 6s, which is followed by an X-wing on 7s, then an X-wing on 8s, then an X-wing on 9s. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's look at this square, for example. Now, if this square is a 5, then I know, because the numbers have to strictly increase in order to be able to get to 8, I would have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in this row. Let's actually show this so that it's clear what I'm talking about. Now, if this is the case, if this is the arrangement of these numbers in row 8, I now need to say, well, where does the 5 go in row 6? It cannot go this far over, because then I can't get as high as 6 skyscrapers. I'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I know the 5 is in one of these two positions, so if it can, we'd have to put it here. But the same logic applies obviously to the 6. So we would get a sequence like that, with that being the 2. And you can see then what I'm referring to as an X-wing is that either these two squares must be 5s, or these two squares must be 5s. One of those things must be true, and it's the same for all of the other numbers in the row, which is absolutely beautiful, because now if I know that the 5s are either here or here, there cannot be any other 5s in columns 4 and 5. So where do I put a 5 in this top middle box? There's only one place it can go. That has to be a 5. And in fact, actually, I'm being a bit slow here. In fact, these are pairs, aren't they? This, because this is either a 5 or a 6, oops, and this is either a 5 or a 6, depending on how the X-wings unwind, this must be either 6 or 7. 7, 8, 8, 9, 8, 9. So this is unbelievable, isn't it? So now, all of a sudden, and the only thing determining you know, and it's going to be the 2 in this row that's either going to appear here or here, and the 1 in this row that's either going to appear here or here. So now I've got 6, 7 pair in column 6, and must be a 1, 9 here, 1, 9 here. Oh, I can actually fill in an 8 in the middle. Just by that's actually just normal Sudoku. This 8, this 8, and this 8. Ah, well, hang on. So this cannot be a 9. If I try and put the 9 in any of these 4 squares, the 5 clue breaks. So the 9 must be below the 8, and we have a 9 here, so the 9 must be there in column 5. So that resolves the 1 and the 9 into those 2 positions. There must now be a 9 in either of these 2 squares. 9, 1, 5, 6 here. And now this 1 is important, look, because that means this square is the 1, and that means that this is the 1 in column, in row 8, sorry. Now the moment I place this, all of my X-wings unwind. I'm actually going to be able to fill in all of these squares as a result of this single 1. Now that is isn't that beautiful? How on earth did this guy come up with this pattern? It's absolutely brilliant, this is. Absolutely brilliant. This sort of thing just makes my day whenever you come across a puzzle that is this clever. I'm just lost in admiration for how anybody comes up with an idea like this, let alone executes it so beautifully. That must be a 2. That gives us a 2 here. Now the puzzle, I think, probably now, I've got so many digits all of a sudden, I hope we'll be able to just finish it off. But this was absolutely stunning. Right, so let's try and finish it off. This must be 7. This is a 1, 4 pair now. So this must be 2, 3, 5. That can't be a 2. This must be 1, 4. That's a 4. Look, this must be a 1, 6 pair. 6 pairs. Ah, that's an 8. Just normal Sudoku. This must be 5. 5 and 6. Can't quite fill that in yet, and this should be 3 and 4, so that means 4, 3 resolves itself like this. Remove the 3 from this square, 4, 3, and this must be 5, 7, which we can resolve. 7, 5, oops, 7 in one of the positions at the top. This must be 3, 2, 5 pair there. And a 3 into one of those 2 squares. Now this 5, I need to put a 7 in one of these squares because I haven't put the 7 in yet. Now if I put the 7 in either of those 2 squares, I can never get as high as 5 because I would get 1, 2, 3, 4, not 5. So this must be the 7, which means this is a 7. And that means that's a 7 as well. And, now look, we've got a 1 over here. Now, given I need this to be, if I try and put a 1 here, again, the 5 will break. This must be 1, this must be 4. I need 3 and 4 to complete those 2 squares. That's a 4. This means 3 over here, look. 1, 9 there. 1, 1, 6. What do we need here? 6 and 5, isn't it? So that must be the 6 then. 5. What am I doing? I'm going mad. That's what I'm doing. It is 5 and 6 into these 2 squares. but that must be this way around. That means 9 and 2 into those two squares. 2 and 6 to finish this off, so that's that way around. That results in 6 and a 5. That gives us a 5 here and hopefully a 9 here. Let's check. Oh, right. And let's finish off the last 2 digits as well. Check again. All looking good. Now, that was pure quality. Thank you very much for sending this in. That is one of the best puzzles I've done in recent weeks. I absolutely loved what was going on in row 6 and row 8, and I'm slightly in awe of the setting here. To begin this puzzle with this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 staircase down the left-hand side, and to have conceived of this beautiful arrangement down here, hats off, hats off. That is absolutely brilliant. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you solved it before watching the video. Actually, I think that must have given a lot of people a lot of pleasure. We'll be back soon with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.